There are two main arguments that socialists love to use in defense of socialism in Venezuela. First, they say that it's because of US sanctions that Venezuela is in economic collapse. First of all, if socialism worked, why would Venezuelan socialism have to rely on US capitalism? Just a thought. The second thing, though, is that every sanction from the United States targeted corrupt individuals in the Venezuelan government, not the economy and not an industry. It wasn't until 2018, 4 years after the crisis began, in 2014, that the first sanction against Petróleos de Venezuela, Venezuela's state-run oil company, was implemented. So there's no possibility that that sanction would have led to the economic crisis. It was implemented 4 years after. Not only that, Petróleos de Venezuela is a company that is headed by multi-millionaires in the government. Yet 90% of Venezuelans live in poverty. Why don't leftists ever talk about that? They only ever talk about the United States and place all the blame on the US. They never talk about corruption in the Venezuelan government. The same people who talk all the time about income disparities, economic disparities. Yeah, that's a huge disparity in Venezuela. Tens of millions of Venezuelans living in poverty, while the political elite are multimillionaires. The second argument that socialists use in favor or in defense of socialism in Venezuela is that it's really authoritarianism, not socialism, that is to blame. If only Venezuela were a democratically socialist country, then it would be a socialist paradise. Only it wouldn't be, because Venezuela tried democratic socialism in the second half of the 20th century, and it was a complete disaster. Also, Venezuela had capitalism under dictatorship during the 1950s with Marcos Pérez Jiménez, and it was the fourth richest country in the world. So no, that's a baseless claim about authoritarianism being the cause. Venezuela nationalized the oil industry in 1976, so that's 23 years before Chavez became president. And what happened immediately after? Well, Venezuela entered the 80s and 90s, 2 decades of constant economic collapses. Oh, going back to the topic of sanctions, if US sanctions are what led to the current crisis in Venezuela, then what sanctions did the US have on Venezuela during the 80s and 90s? Oh, let me think. None. There were none. So, Venezuela tried democratic socialism, and it was a complete failure. Authoritarian socialism, even worse of a failure. Maybe it's about time Venezuela tried free markets under democracy.